Night reigned in the city. Lonely streetlights illuminated the deserted streets, and only a light drizzle broke the silence. An ambulance was rushing across the bridge with the howl of flashing lights. There was a call, an unconscious patient, violent convulsions and shivering. The young nurse Claire was worried sick. It was her third shift. She was afraid of doing something wrong or getting confused at the most crucial moment, but experienced paramedic Pam was calm and focused. The woman skillfully and professionally rendered first aid to the patient and made an accurate diagnosis. Thank God they got there in time. The patient survived. The team returned back to the substation, just sat down to drink tea, and then again the call. Claire exclaimed, "What kind of shift is this? Not a minute's rest, they won't even let me have a cup of tea. I'm exhausted and we have to work until morning." Pam gave her a stern look and said, "Get used to it, Claire. It's not a shift, it's a job. It's always like this. A never-ending round of calls. We save people's lives, and sometimes it's up to us whether they survive or not. You can't just get complacent and resentful." Claire wondered, "Where do you get your strength from?" "I envy you, Pam. How do you manage? And a husband, and a little daughter, and with patience, like family, and all with a smile, with humor. I can't do that." The woman grinned. "You're right, with my husband I'm lucky. My Nicholas spouse what is necessary. He can cook his own dinner and look after his daughter, does not drink, does not smoke. And this is a great thing, when the soul for the family is calm. Then the work goes well. Although he himself has a traveling job, often on business trips. What can you do? Life is like that. But love is only stronger, and after separation, every meeting is sweeter than honey. And I really love my job. Since childhood I dreamed of becoming a doctor. How many years I've been working as a paramedic, and I still worry about everyone. My bosses sometimes scold me for letting everything go through me. But I can't do it any other way. I'm not that kind of character. And you'll get used to our crazy schedule, and I'll help you, don't worry." By morning, the team had saved a few more patients, and the shift was finally over. Pam was dead tired, but she had a lot of work ahead of her, which meant she wouldn't be getting any sleep anytime soon. The woman got into her car, picked up her daughter from her mother-in-law, bought groceries, and drove home at last. The little girl gibbered about how her day was, how she missed her daddy, and kept asking when he was coming. Pam smiled and answered, "Daddy is coming today, sunshine. So we're going to make a delicious lunch now. We're going to bake some chicken and chop some salad. And then we're going to go for a walk on the playground." At home, Pam took a hot shower, and just for a moment sat down in a soft armchair to rest. She looked at the framed family photo on the table. It was of her and Nicholas on a seaside trip once upon a time. And Wendy is only 3 years old. Everyone is so tanned and happy, and there's a beautiful promenade all around. The woman stretched with pleasure and thought, "My God, how long has it been since we've had a vacation? Nicholas is on the road and I have a crazy job, so we can't get away together. Wendy's 6 now, she's going to school in the fall. Can't we at least go away this summer? I'm going to ask my husband tonight. Lately we've been so far apart it's like we're living separate lives." She began to remember her barefoot childhood and youth. Pam was left without her mother early, who died of pneumonia when she was only 5 years old. The girl was raised by her father alone. John worked as a mechanic at the factory, sometimes drank with men, lived hard. But he loved his daughter very much. In his bag was always a gift from the bunny, even one candy. The man so wanted to please his little girl. John very much longed for his wife. Exhausted at work, his daughter demanded attention. He sometimes just dropped his hands. Colleagues pitied the man. After the death of his wife, he often came to work wrinkled and unshaven. Instead of a tasty lunch in a bag, at best lay only one sandwich. A lot of people advised him, "John, you should get married. You'll have Pam to look after and the house in order. You've gone to seed without your Rose. Well, you're not going to get her up from the dead and life goes on." But the man only got angry and always answered the same thing. "I'll raise my daughter myself. We don't need anyone. Stop matchmaking me. I can't be with anyone, okay?" Pam loved and pitied her father, understood how hard it was for him, and tried to help at home since she was a little girl. She did her own homework, and by the time Daddy came home from work, she would make dinner as well as she could. She even learned to darn socks and pantyhose, so that it was unnoticeable. And if Daddy was late, she always knew where to find him. She'd go to Uncle Ben's garage, frown and wrinkle her nose funny. "Daddy, let's go home." Don't drink that vodka, please, I made you porridge. The men laughed heartily and marveled. Look, John, a copy of Rose, and looks so menacing. Pam's a real piece of work. For some reason, John felt ashamed and embarrassed in front of his daughter, and he said goodbye to his friends and went home. He would eat burnt porridge, and then the little girl would sit on his lap and hug him tightly, and he would cringe, stroking her beautiful curly hair and pitying her. Pam almost never asked for anything, even though she had a hard time in school. She had been overweight since childhood because meat dishes on their dinner table were rare, more often bread and pasta. Her classmates laughed at the poorly dressed pudgy girl who had a button phone. They teased her as a fat girl and a beggar. At first Pam cried, shut down, even began to skip school. It was unbearable to endure the attacks of nasty boys. But one day the moment of bullying saw the teacher of physical education, Ethan. He immediately dispersed the nasty boys and shamed them. Shame on you guys, huh? The three of you attacking a girl? What a man. Shame on you. If you lay a finger on her again, you'll be in trouble. I'm not kidding. Pam huddled against the wall, ashamed that her favorite teacher had seen her being bullied. Suddenly, Ethan took her hand and led her into the gym. He sat down on a bench, sat down himself, and began to talk to her. Pam, you understand? I know that you are a great smart girl, that you study on excellent. You are praised by teachers. But kids are cruel, and they'll always find something to pick on. So you don't have to be afraid of them. I'll teach you how to stand up for yourself and become the most beautiful. Would you like that? Pam nodded. She listened to the teacher without breathing, her mouth open. He asked again, I think we'll start by losing weight. You'll come to me twice a week after school. I'll work out with you. But don't be lazy and don't eat too much bread. I promise in 6 months those mean boys will be chasing after you. You've got to have a goal so you can keep going and not break down. For example, what do you want to be when you grow up? The girl did not hesitate for a second. I will become a doctor. My mom died when I was little. They couldn't save her. And I'll grow up and become the best doctor in the world. I'll help people. The gym teacher clapped himself on the knee. Well done. You'll make a great doctor, I'm sure. So concentrate on that. And don't take offense at the fools. We'll give them a hard time. Thanks to her gym teacher's care and support, Pam had really changed. She became more self-confident, lost weight, and now she spent all her free time on extra classes in chemistry and biology, so that it would be easier for her to enter the medical university. Ethan taught her some self-defense techniques, and now even the worst bullies didn't touch her. But no one was in a hurry to make friends either. They were more like shunned. But the girl did not care now. She went headlong into the preparation for admission. Her father was happy for his daughter, supported her zeal for learning, and always told her, I am proud of you, my swallow. And our mother is also proud, I'm sure. Way to go. These warm words of her father seemed to give her strength. She tried even harder. The girl graduated from medical college brilliantly, with a red diploma. For practice herself, asked to the most difficult department. Traumatology, was not afraid to provide first aid and always tried to sincerely help each patient. Soon her first love happened. They met banally. Pam was late for practice. The bus did not come on time. The guy kindly drove her on his motorcycle. It seemed so romantic to her, the feeling of speed, flight, and she embraces the strong torso of a stranger. Pam was literally crazy about her fiancé, Steve. He was older than her, worked as a construction worker, and lived with his mom. The girl completely forgot about caution, and no wonder. Her lover gave her flowers, whispered such tender words, promised that he loved only her. The result was obvious. The girl got pregnant. She was so happy, hurried to tell Steve everything, hoping that now they will get married. But it was not so. His mother made an ugly scandal, shouted that Pam fattened the child and wants to tie her son to himself, and Steve chickened out, hurried to break with the bride and recant. It was such a blow to the girl. She cried for days, could not swallow a crumb. It seemed to her that life is over, that inside her something was ripped out from the root. Then she realized for the first time how her soul ached. She had a miscarriage, with complications. Pam was in the hospital for a long time, treated and suffered a lot. Only by a miracle she was not expelled, was allowed to retake exams and close the session, and she finished her studies. But from then on she shunned guys, considering them all traitors. After college, Pam went to work as a paramedic in an emergency room. She was totally absorbed in her work. That endless string of field trips taught her a lot. She could react instantly and make responsible decisions, take control of herself and not panic, even if the situation seemed critical. But at the same time, she did not become callous, worried about the fate of each patient. She tried to listen, to understand, because often a person just needed to talk, and it became easier. She was especially good at getting along with children. Pam was able to find an approach to them, talk to them, and the little patients themselves were drawn to her. She was praised for her excellent work, and her colleagues often complained that it was time for her to get married. But Pam still wouldn't even look at men. It all came down to one incident. One day she was walking home after her shift and saw 3 thugs beating up some man in the courtyard of an apartment building in broad daylight. Pam couldn't pass by, she wasn't scared, and started shouting loudly, "Stop it! I'm going to call the police! People, help! A man is being killed!" The young men got cold feet, and several residents ran out of the entrance to the girl's shout, and the trio immediately fled. The man was lying in a pool of blood and moaned quietly. Everyone gasped, someone called an ambulance, and Pam shouted firmly, "Let me through! I'm a paramedic! Let me help!" She looked at the victim and gasped, "This is bad. The vein is injured. The blood is gushing. So, don't panic. Clamp your other hand here and hold it tight. Everything will be all right. It's just a matter of time." Pam tightly bandaged the arm above the wound with a kind of tourniquet made from her sweater, gave competent care, and escorted the patient to the hospital in an ambulance. The man was lucky. He survived only thanks to the timely assistance. When the wound was stitched up and the bleeding stopped, they finally met. The man thanked his savior. "Thank you. You saved my life. You saved me from the hooligans. I did not get home 100 meters. I don't even know where those thugs came from. They demanded my bag and my money. They ripped my gold chain off my neck. I fought back, but it was 3 against 1, you know. It's embarrassing, but it felt good. Such a beautiful woman stood up for me. And a doctor. May I thank you and invite you to dinner at the cafe? My name is Nicholas, by the way." Pam was embarrassed and replied, "Well, look, Nicholas, you need to get better first. You've got a good kick in the butt. I'll check on you tomorrow, and then we'll decide. With my job, I don't have time for fun, and I don't trust men anymore. I've had some unfortunate experiences. So have a good day, get well. I gotta go. I'll see you tomorrow." Pam checked on her ward again and again, and then Nicholas began to show persistence. He slowly, small steps, winning the girl's trust, treated with care and tenderness, and Pam thawed. She did not notice how she fell in love again, but not passionately, but really, deeply. Nicholas's parents accepted Pam well. They saw that she was a serious girl. There would be a strong family. And so it turned out. The couple signed, played a modest wedding. The newlyweds, of course, very much wanted to have children. They dreamed of a large family, wanted to buy a house in the future. After that miscarriage, Pam could not get pregnant for a long time. She was very nervous, many times examined. So when it finally happened, her happiness was not limited. But how hard it was for her to get pregnant. All the time there was a threat of failure. Toxicosis terrible. Several times in the department was lying. Nicholas was always by her side, supported her, did not let her fall apart. Probably it was his love and care that gave her strength, and she withstood everything. Pam was in labor for almost 2 days. The daughter was born weak, premature, barely out. The parents adored their baby, they adored her. And after all the hardships endured, both shook over their child. Nicholas turned out to be a wonderful father, and at night he got up and walked, played with his daughter. One thing was frustrating. Her husband had a job that involved frequent business trips. He worked in a small company in the procurement department, so he was away from home a lot. Pam didn't nag her husband, she understood. She had a dangerous job, and the schedule was crazy. So she waited faithfully for her husband and was so happy every time he arrived. But Pam's father grumbled when her daughter was alone, reprimanding her on the phone. "It's not business, Pam. What kind of family do you have? You're on the road 24 hours a day. Your husband's traveling. Wendy's at grandma's more often than she's at home. Husband and wife are like a needle and thread. They have to be together every day to get along. Otherwise, you'll find Nicholas has another woman." Pam just laughed into the phone. "Don't be ridiculous, Papa. You'll tell me the same thing. Nicholas isn't like that. He loves me and my daughter very much. Everything is fine with us. He works hard for his family. He makes money." Though lately Pam noticed that her husband's business trips had become very frequent, and his earnings were low. He complained that the company's income had fallen, but he said it was all temporary. And Nicholas was tired and came back sad and exhausted. The woman tried to be patient and understanding, so she took pity on her husband, did not torment him, on the contrary, fed him deliciously, gave him affection, and gave him the opportunity to sleep and rest. In every family there are difficult times. You just have to get through it. Today Nicholas arrived very late, refused to eat dinner, played languidly with her daughter and fell asleep. Pam even became offended. She waited for him so much, missed him so much, stood at the stove for hours, and he didn't even kiss her like before, didn't tell her how much he loved her. The woman sighed, brushed away a tear, covered Nicholas properly, and admired how he slept soundly, gazed at his features, and resentment evaporated. She ruffled his hair lightly and whispered, "Nothing, darling. Nothing. Everything will work out. You rest. The poor man is exhausted from the road. I love you so much. Together we will overcome everything." My husband smiled through his sleep and whispered, "I love you too, my dear." He held Pam tightly to himself, and she fell asleep immediately, as soon as she felt this inexpressible feeling of unity with her beloved filled her from the inside. A couple weeks passed. Nicholas withdrew, fiddled with his daughter. In the evenings they watched together with Pam's favorite TV series under a blanket, and everything was as good as before. But soon the man was on the road again. Pam was upset. "The boss is driving you crazy. You can't do that. You have a family after all. And it would be nice if there was a profit, but you're just traveling around. And I'm bored again?" Nicholas sighed heavily and began to calm his wife. "Now do not swear, sweetheart, it's necessary. I know now we have bad times, things are getting worse in the firm. But I worked there for so many years, I do not want to let down the bosses and like a rat to run away from a sinking ship. I think we'll manage, things will get better soon. Just hang in there a little longer. Don't you think I miss you?" "Yes, you do. I miss you. And I miss my little snub-nosed little girl." Pam hugged her husband, kissed him goodbye, and let him go. But somehow she felt so sad and heavy. But she was cheerful, chased away bad thoughts, especially because tomorrow she had to be calm and collected. They drove as usual to the call. Nothing special. A child with a fever. It often happens. Pam prepared herself to be very tactful. After all, often frightened parents panic when their favorite child is sick, and from that they are too harsh. It is necessary not to get angry, but on the contrary, to calm down. The door of the apartment was opened by a pretty brown woman in her 30s with a pleasant smile and sad eyes. She let the team inside. "Hello, please come in. My daughter Lizzie is sick. The temperature is under 40, I can't bring it down. Help, I'm very worried. The baby's on fire." Pam went into the room. She looked around. The place was perfectly clean and tidy. In the crib lay the baby, wrapped up to her neck in a warm blanket. She was quiet. Her eyes were crying and sore. Her cheeks were burning with fire. The paramedic put a thermometer on her and cautiously began to ask, "Hello, sunshine. I am a doctor. Tell me, where does it hurt?" The little girl pointed to her neck with her hand and whispered, "The throat hurts, and it hurts to swallow, and my head hurts too, and I'm sleepy." Pam looked at the thermometer, 39 and 5. Then she examined her throat. It was red. The first thing she did was to remove the warm blanket, get an antipyretic from her medical case, give her a shot, and say to the landlady, "Your daughter probably has a sore throat." I gave her a shot. This should go down, and I will prescribe you a broad-spectrum antibiotic and syrup. I'll write down the regimen too, but make sure you see your daughter's pediatrician tomorrow, and give Lizzie plenty of water, tea with lemon, compote, and berry morsels. That way she'll get back on her feet faster. And also remember, you cannot in any case to wrap the child with a high temperature." The woman nodded, began to see off the medics, and thanked. "Thank you. At least I calmed down a little. Tomorrow I will definitely take my daughter to the hospital." The The paramedic waited for a while and took her temperature again. It had already started to drop. The little girl was a little more cheerful. Now we could go. Pam was about to leave the bedroom when she caught a glimpse of a framed photo on the wall. Her own husband, Nicholas, was looking back at her. She even recoiled and automatically asked again, "Pardon me, please, who's in this photo? Such a familiar face." The landlady smiled and eagerly replied, "Ah, so this is my fiancé, Nicholas, Lizzie's father. We've been together for a long time. Our daughter has already grown up, but we still can't get married. Pregnancy or Nicholas's business trips." Pam couldn't believe it, and disregarding the rules of decorum, she asked again, "So, and now, where is your fiancé? Again on a business trip?" The woman answered cheerfully, "No, at home. He just arrived today. For groceries ran away. I'm sitting with my daughter. I cannot go away. He's so nice and caring." Pam's hair stood up when she saw Nicholas's travel bag in the hallway. There could be no mistake. She had bought him that bag herself years ago at the clothing market. Everything matched. That's what her husband's business trips are like. That's why her family doesn't see any money. Of course, try to feed everyone at the same time. Pam mumbled, "Goodbye," and took off down the street. She was like a fish gulping for air, and she couldn't breathe. Her chest constricted with unbearable pain. A frightened Claire ran up to her and asked, "Pam, are you all right? You look so pale. What's the matter? Are you so worried about the baby? You said it was just a sore throat. The girl will be fine. Don't worry." The paramedic finally took a breath, exhaled slowly, and tried to pull herself together. She did not want to tell anyone about her humiliation and betrayal of her husband, did not want to be sympathized with, whispered behind her back. So she smiled and replied, "It's all right, Claire. It's just a little heart palpitations from the weather. Shall we go? We've got a lot of addresses to go to." Pam barely finished her shift. In moments of unbearable despair, she would go to the bathroom, cover her mouth with the palm of her hand to keep from howling, and cry quietly. Then she washed her face, cleaned herself up, and drove to the next call. But there was something unimaginable going on inside. Pam could not realize that her faithful and loyal, so tender and loving Nicholas turned out to be a traitor, that he had not just a mistress, but actually a second family. And he deceives both of them, swears his love, and faithfully looks into their eyes. How is that even possible? It's the height of cynicism. When Pam returned home, her daughter immediately realized that her mother was upset about something, clung to her with all her little body, and began to comfort her childishly as she knew how. "Who hurt you, Mommy? Were you crying? I love you so much, more than anyone else in the world. Do you want me to cheer you up? Look what I can do." The little girl jumped to the floor and tumbled back and forth over her head and made a funny face, trying to make her mother laugh. The woman really smiled and praised the girl. "Wow, what a good girl. I'm fine, sweetheart. Well, shall we go for a walk?" In front of her daughter, the woman tried to hold it together, but it gave her a hard time, and when the baby fell asleep in the evening, Pam finally gave vent to her feelings. She sobbed into her pillow until almost morning. She was torn up inside with pain because her family had fallen apart. Was there even a family? Or had Pam made it up? The woman paced the bed, thinking, "What am I going to do with this truth? How am I supposed to live my life? I wish I hadn't seen that picture. I would live as before, in happy ignorance. I'd still boil soup and bake pies while waiting for my Nicholas to come back from his business trips. Or maybe pretend that nothing happened. Don't break up the family. Don't deprive the daughter of her father. But how? How can I live with Nicholas? How can I look into his lying eyes and know that he's going back to his mistress? That he'll declare his love to her? Or shall I make a wild scandal and slap the rascal in the face and tell him everything? What would I accomplish? Only scare my daughter to death. Oh my God. Help me to find a solution. Help me find the strength to get through this." In the morning, Pam knew what she was going to do. She didn't cry anymore. She made her daughter some oatmeal with raisins for breakfast and went to wake her up. The little girl whimpered, "Mommy, I don't want to go to daycare. I don't want to go to Grandma's either." Pam smiled and replied, "We're not going to daycare or Grandma's. We're going to Grandpa John's house in the village today, and we're going to live there. He missed his granddaughter very much and is waiting for us." Wendy was happy. Hooray! I miss him too. Thomas the cat is there. Can we buy him some goodies? What about Daddy? Is he going to live with us? Yes? Tears sprang to Pam's eyes as she struggled to hold back the tears. Daddy's away on a business trip, sweetheart. He's away for a long time, far away. So we'll go without him. Go get your toys. On the way, Pam stopped by work and shocked everyone. She had a long talk with her boss and applied for a transfer to the township hospital. All the employees swooped in and asked, Pam, what are you doing leaving us all of a sudden? Or did something happen? Do you need any help? Just say the word. And again the woman almost howled in her voice. She wanted to tell someone everything, to ease her soul. But she swallowed and answered, It's all right. Nothing terrible happened. We just decided to move in with Dad, that's all. It's just a family thing, no big deal. Pam said a warm goodbye to everyone and drove with her daughter to the village to her father's house. All the way she was nervous, worried. She didn't know how to tell Daddy everything, it was so embarrassing. But the wise father understood everything without words when he saw his daughter and granddaughter on the doorstep and in the car bales with things. He didn't ask anything. He saw his daughter's tearful eyes and understood that she was sick of it. She would step back and tell everything herself. Instead of moralizing, he spread his arms and shouted, What's this bunny who's come to see me? Oh, granddaughter, you've grown up like this, you look like your mother. Hello, daughter. Well done for coming, come on in. I don't have much in the fridge, just a bachelor's set, potatoes in a jacket and herring with parsley. But I'll run to the store in a jiffy. Pam hugged her daddy and said quietly, Daddy, I'm not visiting. I'm here for good. You don't have to run anywhere. I brought plenty of food. Will you take me and Wendy in? You're not going to kick us out? I've already transferred to the hospital in the village. John sighed and stroked her hair as if she were a little girl. What's all this nonsense? Live. I'll only be glad. I've gone completely wild in retirement. All I do for fun is to slaughter a goat in the yard with Vasilich. Don't worry, Pa. Don't grieve. Everything will get better slowly. Maybe you'll make up. It happens all sorts of things. Pam was very grateful to her father for not asking her anything, but just accepted her. Slowly she began to settle in. She was also very well received at the hospital. The specialists here were worth their weight in gold. Pam put things in order, did a general cleaning, tried to please her father and daughter with something tasty. The girl also quickly made friends with the neighbor's little girl of her age, and now she could not be kept at home. The woman held on, for the sake of her father, for the sake of her daughter. But it is impossible to erase from the memory of so many years lived, to tear from the heart of the man whom she loved so sincerely. And she sobbed into her pillow at night, and her heart was torn to pieces. 2 weeks passed. Nicholas came home as if nothing had happened and shouted from the doorstep, Pam, Wendy, I'm home. Why isn't anyone here to greet me? Ow, where are you all? The man threw his bag, began to walk around the apartment, stupidly looking at the empty closets in the nursery too. No books, no things and toys. He realized that his wife had gone somewhere, for good. A cold sweat broke over him. Did Pam find out? How? That's all I need. He began to call his wife, who didn't answer the phone for a long time and then sharply answered, What do you want, Nicholas? The man started yelling into the phone, Pam, what's the joke? I do not understand you, where all disappeared? I came here and there's no one home. What's wrong? And nothing, Nicholas, nothing happened except that I now know that you have been living on 2 families for many years, and the second daughter, Lizzie, is available. Lovely girl. I wondered why you were so tired on your business trips, and it's your bed comforts so exhausting. So love and advice. I'll leave you to it. Have a nice day, and don't ever call me again. I can't forgive you. There was nothing to say, and Nicholas dropped the call. He sat down on the couch, wrapped his arms around his head and mumbled, Shit, I'm so fucked up. It was bound to happen sooner or later. I've been with Pam for so many years. I love her and I love Wendy, and I love Tiffany and Lizzie. I'm lying to them too. I'm such a jerk. Maybe it's for the best that Pam found out. I'll go back to Tiffany, repent, marry her and live like a normal person. And Pam? She's strong. She can handle herself. I know it. Nicholas took his bag. He didn't want to be alone in an empty apartment, and went to Tiffany's. She was surprised, as she had just seen her fiancé off on a business trip an hour ago. Nicholas sat down beside her and quietly asked, "Tiffany, tell me, do you still want me to marry you? And for me to stop going on business trips so often? To be around all the time?"
The woman nodded and said eagerly, "Of course I do, honey. Daughter is 6 years old, and you are still her nobody on the documents. Whether we are together or not, it is unclear. Honey, are you proposing to me? Did I really wait? I can't believe it." Nicholas sighed again, and perhaps for the first time in his life, dared to tell the truth. "Tiffany, I love you and Lizzie, and we will definitely get married soon. But first I must divorce. I can't go on like this. I'll do it tomorrow. I don't want to start my married life by cheating. I'm married. Her name's Pam. She's a paramedic in the ER. I have a daughter named Wendy, also 6 years old. It just so happens that Pam found out about you and me from somewhere and left me on her own. So now you and I can finally get married. Why are you looking at me like that? Are you not happy? I mean, you've been on my ass for years about when and when and when." Tiffany looked at her fiancé in a daze. She thought Nicholas was going to pull out a ring and tell her how much he loved her. But from what she heard, she even felt sick. Her brain seemed to explode from everything that the groom said so mundanely. "Nicholas, what are you saying? It turns out that you've been married all these years? And what am I to you then? A mistress for fun? Is that it? You bastard. I thought you really loved me, didn't you? Oh my God. I feel sorry for your wife, living side by side with such a monster. How many tears has she cried? You know what, Nicholas? Why don't you get out of here? Don't you ever come here again. Go back to your wife and live there. I don't want to be separated. I don't want to be cursed. And I can never trust you again. How could you do this, Nicholas? Why did you fool me for so many years? I would never have gone to bed with you if I'd known you were married. Get out." Nicholas mumbled. "Tiffany, why would you do that? We love each other. You've always dreamed of getting married. Don't push me away, please. What about Lizzie? She's my daughter." Tiffany went crazy, grabbing him by the chest and screaming in his face. "Forget about Lizzie too. You're not on her papers. She doesn't need a traitor as a father. I hate you, Yorokin. Fuck you." Nicholas left without a grain of salt and went to his apartment. He wandered through the empty rooms. No one waited for him, no one met him, and no one loved him. It seemed that now the nursery door would open, and a laughing Wendy would run out to meet him, spread her arms and hug and caress him. And Pam would call him to supper, and everything would be as before, as it always was. But then an evil whisper in his head would say, "That's it. You'll never have anything else. Never again." And then the man was so angry. "Well, no, I'm not just going to give up. All right, Lizzie, she was born out of wedlock, and it'll be hard to prove otherwise. But Wendy is my legitimate daughter, and I have every right to see her. And I'll scare Pam, and if she doesn't come back to me, I'll take my daughter away and make sure she lives with me." "Oh yeah? They're insulting me. And I've loved every one of them, and I've never hurt them. I'm not going to stay here alone like an owl. I'm going to get my wife and kid back home." From that day on, Pam's life was a living hell. Nicholas called her 100 times a day, threatening to take her daughter away and begging her to come back to him. He swore that he was done with his mistress, and he slung mud at her as if she'd rounded him up and he'd had nothing to do with it. And Pam remembered that pretty woman with sad eyes and did not believe her husband. She did not look like a predator, as quiet, simple. She probably didn't realize that the scoundrel of a groom was married, if she dreamed of marrying him. Pam looked at Wendy and realized that her daughter would grow up without a father. And she loves him and misses him. That's not good. But Pam was determined not to go back to her husband. She couldn't trust him, she couldn't love him sincerely, and it was disgusting to go to bed with him. Her father saw her tossing and turning, and he couldn't stand it any longer. "Pam, don't torture yourself, there's no need. You decided to divorce, so bring it to the end. File for divorce. Otherwise your husband won't give you any peace. He'll just keep getting on your nerves. I understand, it's difficult. We'll have to share, and the apartment, and the car, You are all in the marriage acquired. But what to do? It's either goodbye and live with it, or cut to the heart. The third is not given, alas. So Pam decided to go ahead and file for divorce first. Nicholas was furious, hired a lawyer, and was preparing to tear his wife apart in court and take Wendy for himself. His life was a living hell now, too. At work, his co-workers were giving him a bad look, and when they found out about everything, they judged Nicholas.
After all, many of his friends repeatedly came to his and Pam's house, celebrated holidays together, always praised the hostess, saw how she loved Nicholas, and could not believe that he had betrayed her for so many years. The man now ate nothing but noodles and convenience foods. He never knew how to cook. And why should he? Nicholas was used to being bathed in love, nourishing and delicious food, and being pampered by two loving women at once. Now it was unbearable for him to be alone in an empty apartment every night. He drank alcohol with grief, began to look bad. His stomach began to hurt terribly. Fire directly baked. He missed Wendy desperately. He missed Lizzie. He missed both women too. And now they'd all turned their backs on him at once. It was killing the man. Pam, too, was exhausted by all this nervousness. She had not thought that Nicholas would behave so brazenly and aggressively. It turns out that for so many years she did not know what her husband's nature. He was always affectionate, gentle, they did not even fight. And now what? Nicholas has turned into a beast, to the point of threatening her. But it's all his own fault. She could barely keep her temper in front of her father and daughter. One day there was a call. It was necessary to go to a distant farm, at the very end of the village. They raised cattle and grew vegetables in greenhouses for sale. Many fellow villagers worked for them during the season, praising the owner for always paying generously and without cheating. The farmstead was really impressive. A big house and a huge farmstead. Everything was done to the best of its ability, for centuries. The door was opened by a short, stout man in his 40s, apparently the owner himself. He said hello and fussed. "Good evening, come in. My name's Henry. I was the one who called you. My mother's arthritis has worsened, and she's been in bed all day. She's got to go to the hospital, but it's not till Monday. Is there anything we can do to ease her condition? It's a pity to see a dear person suffering." Pam went into the house. In one of the bedrooms there was a stubby old woman lying on a huge, massive bed. She was rubbing some ointment on her swollen joints and groaning. The paramedic introduced herself. "Good evening. My name is Pam. Let me take a look at you. How long have you been suffering from arthritis? What have you been taking? Do you have a discharge from the hospital? I need to figure out what medication to give you." The old lady immediately became animated, because all elderly people are happy when they receive attention. Lara began to tell, "Oh, my daughter, I've been sick for a long time, about 10 years now. I once got a cold in my joints, fell into an ice hole, and everything started from that day. My son is caring. Twice a year I am on examination, and treatment determines a private clinica. In sanatoriums I go. After that I feel better. Almost a year is enough, and then all over again. He's a good man, hard-working, fair, kind. It's just a pity I'm left alone, like a finger. When I die, I'll have no one to talk to. I wish I could find him a decent, serious wife. Like you, for example. By the way, are you married? Any kids?" Pam at the same time was taking medicine into a syringe and laughed. "Are you trying to match me up? No, I'm done. I'm divorcing a traitor called husband. For 10 years he lived for 2 families, and I had no idea. That's it. And now he's decided to take away my daughter, so I'm preparing for trial. So I don't even want to hear about men. Let me take a look at your hospital records." The old woman shook her head. "I sympathize with you. Yes, there are enough scoundrels in the world now. But my Henry's not like that. He's been hurt by his wife's adultery. She was tangling with a man under our noses until he caught her in the act. Kicked her out in disgrace. Henry was traumatized when he was a kid. He's not going to get to know anyone either. Life's a bitch." Henry came into the bedroom and the 2 women stopped talking. The man gave Pam a hard, stern look and suddenly suggested, "Pam, you don't have any more calls for tonight, do you? We were just about to have dinner. Why don't you join us? And thank you for helping my mom. She's feeling much better." Pam looked embarrassed and blushed. "Thanks for the invitation, Henry, but I can't make it." My daughter's waiting at home and Dad would be worried if I was late. Some other time. The owner sighed sadly, said goodbye, and led the paramedic out. Pam liked Lara very much. She was a pleasure to talk to. She was afraid of Henry, though, because he had a stern look about him. A couple days later, Pam got a call at her apartment. A farm boy stood on the doorstep, holding out a huge gift basket. There was a lot of stuff in there. Ripe, big, fleshy tomatoes and fragrant cucumbers, goat cheese, a bunch of cilantro and parsley, delicious pears and apples, a bunch of ripe grapes. Inside was a note from Henry. "Help yourself from the bottom of my heart, everything is fresh. I look forward to seeing you and your daughter on Sunday. Mom will be delighted. Sincerely, Henry." It was so touching, so unexpected, and so nice. Pam grinned and thought, "I've never gotten a bouquet like that before. I'm so surprised." And Wendy exclaimed, "Wow, all this for us? From who? Can I have a pair? It smells so good. It's so sweet." John looked at his daughter with interest, but waited to see what she had to say. Pam was embarrassed and replied, "It's from Henry the farmer. I treated his mom a while ago, so I guess it's a token of my gratitude. He wants me and Wendy to visit. I don't know what to do. Should I go or not? It's embarrassing. We hardly know each other. Dad's supportive. Of course you should go. You'll get some fun out of it. Of course. He must have taken a liking to you, daughter, if he wants to visit. Henry's a good man, a solid host, and I've never heard anything bad about him. He wouldn't hurt you. You've been through enough with your divorce. You've lost weight. Your face is gone." Pam enjoyed her visit to the farmer's house. Lara gladly showed Wendy the numerous animals, told interesting stories. They had a wonderful time. Henry turned out to be a pleasant and simple man. It was easy to communicate with him. Soon the conversation turned to personal matters. Pam did not notice how she told Henry everything about herself, about her husband's betrayal, about the difficult divorce process that had tormented her so much. The man listened attentively, shook his head, and then shared his frankness. "I understand you perfectly. I was in your shoes once myself. I loved Lori since high school, and she kept twisting her tail. Then our fates diverged, and we met again at a class reunion. She was divorced by then. So I couldn't resist, because I loved her so much all these years. My friends all discouraged me to get involved with her, saying that she is a lover of rich men to twist heads. But I didn't believe it. I had a big wedding. It seemed like my high school dream had come true. But I was in a hurry. I should have really looked around first. Lori wasn't interested in the farm and the farming. She said it smelled bad and the work was dirty. She was in no hurry to help. But I didn't insist. Lori lived in her own pleasure, slept till dinner, sometimes really cooked, often went to her friends. And then suddenly out of the blue she got interested in flowers, and everything in the garden, in the greenhouse, began to disappear. I even rejoiced at first. A fool, I thought, finally found something to her liking. Mom was the first to notice something wrong, but I didn't believe it until the last moment. And when I caught the two lovebirds, I thought I'd kill them both. Can you imagine what it was like to find out that my beloved wife was cheating on me right here on the estate with a worker? I barely survived the horror of it all. I've been alone ever since. I've gone a bit wild. But you're different. I can see that. Working, raising your daughter, respecting your father. I really like you, Pam. You're the kind of wife one could wish for. I know you don't have time for this right now. You've got your own problems. But I'm here for you. I have enough money and connections. Don't worry. Your husband won't take your child away from you. I propose to be friends, to communicate. And then we'll see how it works out." Pam was touched. She really lacked a friendly support, because Daddy cannot tell everything, what is going on in the soul. Do not want him to worry even more. So she said, "I don't mind, Henry. We'll be friends. I've got a trial in a week and it'll be decided there. I'm very worried. I won't give Wendy to anyone. But Nicholas is as dumb as a tank. He's obsessed with the idea. He doesn't realize his daughter will suffer. He only thinks about his own ambition. I don't care about the apartment or the property. He can have it all, as long as he doesn't touch Wendy. I don't tell her anything bad about her father. She loves him and she's still waiting for him." The closer was the trial, the more Pam was nervous. She could not find a place for herself, and Nicholas kept frightening that he had prepared a murderous dirt and still will get his daughter to live with him. The woman stopped eating and sleeping, only, and prayed that her ex-husband came to his senses and did not traumatize the child. But a day before the trial, everything suddenly changed dramatically. She received a call from her husband's lawyer saying that he would not come to the trial and asking her to come to the hospital, to the surgical department. Pam didn't understand anything, didn't know what had happened. Then she asked the farmer for help for the first time, ran to him washed up, told him everything and began to beg. "Henry, I'm afraid to go alone. I don't know what to expect from Nicholas. I don't know if it's a trick. I don't wonder about anything anymore. I wonder if you could come with me. It would make me feel better." The man responded immediately saying, "Of course, what questions? I'll just change my clothes. Wait here. Don't be afraid of anything, I'm with you. Everything will be all right." They went to the hospital. They entered the room together. Henry was lying white as a sheet under an IV. When he saw Pam, he smiled weakly and spoke confusedly. "Hello, Pam. Thank you for coming. I'm sorry, honey. I'm sorry for everything. The betrayal, the cheating, the whole court thing. Now I'm paying the price for all my sins. I'm dying, Pam. My days are numbered. After you left, I gave up on myself. I went on a bender. I didn't eat. I felt my stomach burning. My stomach was on fire. I was in a hell of a lot of pain. But I kept procrastinating. I didn't go anywhere. Until yesterday, I was taken away by ambulance. I need an expensive operation. Then at least some chances will appear. But where can I get the money for it? I only have half of it. The greedy lawyer sucked it all up and is asking for more. But I didn't call you here to complain. I only came to say goodbye and ask for forgiveness, to ease your soul." Pam cried and did not know what to say. She felt sorry for Nicholas, no matter what. After all, so many years lived together. She stroked his arm and whispered, "How can it be? Is there nothing to be done?" Henry intervened, coughing, and said decisively, "I'm prepared to pay for your operation, but only if you stop badgering Pam and don't take her daughter away from her. Be a man, after all. How many times can you abuse a woman? Is she guilty of something?" Nicholas couldn't believe his ears and babbled, "I agree. I agree to everything. I don't want to die. I promise, if I live, I'll never hurt her again. Believe me, I've had a lot of second thoughts since the accident. I know it was my own fault, making two women unhappy at once." Henry kept his promise, talked to the doctor and paid for the operation. Nicholas survived and was slowly on the mend. Pam visited him, carried broth and supported him, in a purely human way. Nicholas was very grateful to her. He looked at such a native woman, admired the way she habitually tucked a curl behind her ear, the way she twitched her shoulders. It seemed that everything was the same as before. Now he would get out of bed, and they would go home with her. And there is a daughter, and so good, so cozy. Nicholas couldn't stand it any longer and asked quietly, "Pam, honey, can't we do something else? Let's start our lives over. After all, we were once so happy. And I love my daughter. I miss her so much. Maybe you can forgive me, you foolish fool." Pam lowered her eyes and shook her head, sighed heavily and replied firmly, "No, Nicholas, we can't do anything. A broken cup, of course, can be glued together, but the water from it is no longer drinkable. I loved you very much and I trusted you as I trusted myself. But you trampled everything, alas. And now I'm very fond of another man, Henry. He's straightforward and honest. He makes me feel at ease. He's real, you know. And you can always see your daughter. You're her father. And I don't mind. Wendy loves you and misses you too. I don't want us to end up enemies. That's not right. We're both parents, so we have to be human. Keep a human face for our daughter's sake. I'm sorry, I gotta go. Feel better." After Pam left, the man felt so sick. He cried for a long time, unashamed of his tears. How he regretted now that he had lost his family, that he had crippled not only Pam's life but Tiffany's as well. Lying to both of them, lying for so many years. He realized all he had to do now was live for his children, to help his girls, to support them, and somehow atone for his sin. Pam started dating Henry. It just sort of came out of the blue. They visited each other more and more often, got along well. Lara idolized Pam, and Wendy was a pleasure to take care of. calling her granddaughter. Pam also went into town and visited Tiffany again. Why? She didn't know. She just wanted to have a heart-to-heart talk with her. Tiffany was frightened when she saw her visitor and began to explain confusedly. "I'm sorry. Please forgive me. I didn't know Nicholas was married. For so many years he had been fooling me, and I was offended. Why we rarely go out together, why he puts off marriage. I made excuses for him because I loved him, and when I found out, I drove Nicholas away. I don't want to live a lie. It's not right. You must hate me. You curse me." "Yes?" Pam shook her head negatively and said, "Don't be ridiculous, Tiffany. Why would I hate you? You're just as deluded and foolish as I am. Nicholas had us both fooled. That's just the way it is. He and I divorced, but we managed not to become enemies. Why am I here? The kids are our sisters, aren't they? Why don't we introduce them to each other? They're of the same blood, and you and I have nothing more to share. So come and visit us with Lizzie, I'd be delighted. And I want you to know that I'm not angry anymore. Moreover, I've found my happiness. Yes, and it happens. And you will find it. You just have to believe in yourself again." Tiffany looked at Pam in shock and said, "I've never met anyone like you before. You are an amazing woman. Lizzie and I will definitely come. Thank you for inviting us. Even though it looks crazy, the wife and the mistress are friends. Thank you for finding the strength to forgive me. I feel a little better now." "Do you know what happened to Nicholas? Where is he now?" Pam smiled. "He's in the hospital, recovering from surgery. He's in surgery 5. You can check him out if you want. I can see in your eyes that you still love him." The women said goodbye warmly. There were no more misunderstandings and offenses between them, because Pam's heart was now occupied by another person. She let go of Nicholas inside, and whether Tiffany would be with him or not, it was up to her to decide. Tiffany also visited Nicholas. She couldn't do otherwise, because for many years they were connected not only by feelings, but also by a child. And he would never be a stranger to her anyway. After their breakup, she cried for a long time and could not recover from the betrayal, but along with hatred in her still warmed love. But when they met and talked, Tiffany realized that she could never be with Nicholas again. He, of course, also apologized, saying that he loved her, that he missed his daughter. And Tiffany looked at him with completely different eyes now. She was sobering up from her love binge, nodding her head, but she knew she could never trust him again. They parted on a good note, and Tiffany, as well as Pam, allowed Nicholas to see his daughter. After all, adult problems shouldn't concern a child. Lizzie shouldn't be deprived of her father. It wouldn't do any good. Many years have passed since then. Pam found her happiness with Henry. They had a strong and friendly family, no deceit in it. Her husband was the head of the family, the boss. His word always carried weight. But that didn't depress Pam at all. On the contrary, she felt protected, knew that Henry would never betray her, never be sneaky or hide anything. It wasn't in his character at all. If there were any disagreements, they settled them simply by sitting down and talking, straight and frank, until they found a common solution to the problem. Wendy got along with Henry, and he was happy to take care of her, to teach her lessons, to educate her. But still, the girl always looked forward to seeing her father. She ran to him with all her legs, chirped about everything, and even visited him sometimes. And Wendy and Lizzie became best friends. They shared secrets and were remarkably similar in personality, sisters after all. Sometimes Nicholas took both daughters at once, which was even more fun. The man learned a bitter lesson, and now he devoted all his time to his girls, literally dissolving in them. He bought them all the best, took them to the park, the circus, and was the best daddy for them. Of course, Nicholas regretted that he could not keep any of his favorite women, and every time he took his daughter from Pam, he felt a painful prick of jealousy inside when he saw how happy she was with someone else. But then he'd tell himself, "What did you want, you fool? If you've ruined the family, let Pam be happy with someone else." Tiffany met a good man a year later and was able to build a relationship. This time she did not delay the wedding. And at first she was very jealous of the chosen one, all checked if he did not have any secrets, but eventually calmed down and began to trust the groom. But the bitter experience of relations with Nicholas for a long time Shiaukavkala and interfered in the new family. In the family has long become a family tradition to celebrate Wendy's birthday with the whole large family. On this day in their house gathered everyone: Nicholas, Tiffany, Lizzie. They tried not to remember the past and not to rekindle resentments, but had a lot of fun. Lara watched the family gatherings, saw how her son's eyes lit up, how happy he was, and thanked God that he had sent Pam to their home that day, for it was from that time that Henry had come to life and had become a model family man. Pam sat at the big table, huddled close to Henry, and talked quietly to him. "How time flies. I met you when Wendy was still in high school, and now she's in 5th grade. She's all grown up now, just like her father. Just like her father. And Lizzie looks more like Tiffany, doesn't she? The girls are all grown up now. All giggling, talking about the boys, trying on outfits. They're funny. Tell me, darling, if we could have children, who would you want more, a boy or a girl?" The man frowned and looked at his wife incomprehensibly. "Why are you pressing on the painful callus? You know I can't have children, at least if it hasn't happened till today, then there's nothing to wait for. We're not getting any younger. Having a son or a daughter is a pipe dream of mine. I'm happy enough that I met you, that I'm taking care of Wendy. She's like a daughter to me. I wouldn't dream of anything more." Pam looked at him enigmatically. "And for nothing. You should always believe in a miracle, and it will come true. I know that now. Look what I've got. Quietly, please. I'm not ready to talk about it in front of the guests for fear of jinxing it, but I'll share it with you." Henry stared dumbfounded at the 2-stripe test and rolled his eyes as he realized what his wife wanted to say. His breathing seemed to stop. He almost cried and whispered, "It can't be. Is it true? I'm going to be a father? What a gift for my old age. Pam, darling, I'm going to carry you in my arms and blow the dust off you. Can I at least tell my mom? Otherwise, I'm going to tear up inside. She's going to be so happy." Pam quickly tucked the test into the pocket of her sundress and kissed Henry, whispering, "Hold on, honey. We've waited so long for this. We'll tell everyone later. But for now, let it be our little secret."